So Ian, did you see my topic on the retro game gold rush?
Yes, I listened.
It was a TED Talk.
To
I know you didn't like it. It was a TED Talk.
It was 45 minutes long.
But it had to be.
And I don't know that it did. I really don't know that it did. At 22 minutes, you're like, all right, I'm gonna truncate it here.
I did.
And then you went on for another 22 minutes.
All right, Ian, get your revenge on Pat. Punch me, Ian.
No,
I like it.
But it's, between the article and what you had to say, it was a good two sides of a coin. I did make a couple of notes.
Two sides of a coin or two different, like two
sides of a coin. Two different sides of a coin.
Oh, two different sides.
Two sides of a coin.
Sometimes you say it's two sides of a coin when it's the same side, kind of. Or
do you?
No.
I don't think you do.
What's that expression? I'm not good with expressions.
Two sides of the same coin.
Two sides of the same coin.
Two sides of the coin.
See, the expression is two sides of the same coin, meaning it's two ways of saying the same thing. This was two different sides of a coin. Anyway, you can go on. Are you looking it up?
No, I'm pulling up my notes.
Oh, you have notes on your phone? Why don't you put it on the Google Drive?
Because I don't know.
Okay.
I just have a few notes here, and then you can coax me with other stuff.
Okay, well, the follow-up was that Danielle wanted to, I guess, debate me or have a discussion. She contacted me on Facebook. She said that my take was one-sided when I was providing the counterpoint to what I saw was a one-sided, mostly article. So I thought that was interesting. So I created the other side to the article.
I do see that as a silly thing to say. But honestly, the problem is neither side is going to agree with the other side.
Of course not.
So it's not exactly
it's diametrically opposed.
It's not exactly a counterpoint on either side as it is just statements. This is what we have. There's nothing to really gain, I don't think, about constantly doing
predictions.
It back and forth. Sure.
Except here's the only difference is I'm not biased in my viewpoint. I don't have stake in the game in terms of giving my viewpoint of where the market's going. So I don't have investment in it.
A couple of things. I agree that that the people. I thought it was strange, the whole love of the game thing. The people talking about how they're getting into it because they have love for these games. Mm-hmm. I don't believe that. Especially in the world of collecting, I see this as sort of a manufactured thing, and I think a lot of people do. And it's happened before. You build up the hype. It was the same thing with the comics in the 90s.
And Magic cards.
And everything. I mean, Pokemon cards. Anyone who comes out and is like, oh, I have this thing, it must be worth a lot, has somehow fallen victim to this sort of inflated sense, this inflated idea of worth and value.
Sure. The value.
But I don't... With video game collecting having been around for as long as it has now, and with the fact that I would say in general loose NES collecting is on the downward slope, it's hard for me to believe that a lot of these people who are jumping into it are suddenly jumping in because they have love for the game. Did you not have love for these games 3 years ago when it was popular?
It doesn't fit the demographics, what they're saying. A lot of these people that have this money, they're not in their 30s, they're in their 40s or 50s. I've met a couple of these folks, and it's like you weren't in the demographics when the NES was popular. You probably didn't have it as a kid, so it's already false.
Right.
I'm not saying everyone, but I'm saying from some of the people I know, it's like they're a little bit too old to have been NES fans to begin with, or Super Nintendo.
That said, I do disagree with you a little bit on the point of if they were just in it for the love of the game, they would be fine with a complete unopened copy. I can't say what collectors are going to be into. I like having a sealed something or another every once in a while.
I just think it's convenient that now that this graded sealed game's available, now this is what I have to own.
Sure, I get that, but I wouldn't call someone not a collector because they went with a sealed copy over a complete copy and they have a loose copy. Who knows? I can't say what people like.
These people aren't buying loose copies.
No, I know they're not. I'm just saying I wouldn't use that as a determining factor. Then let's see, what else do I have here? The difference in between what sellers are slabbed and collectors want. I've dealt with this at the store. So the whole idea, you guys were using the Left Brothers Super Mario 3 variant thing. If it doesn't matter if it's rare. If people aren't looking for it, people aren't looking for it, and people don't care. There are plenty of rare comics that, probably had 15 made. No one is looking for them. No one wants them. It doesn't matter. It's still just dog trash. It doesn't matter. So I used to deal with that a lot in the store when people would trade in, and they'd be like, "Oh, well, it's this variant, which is technically one of the Gunsmoke ones." I'm like, I'm not. We don't pay more or less for these.
Oh, it's a Gunsmoke label variant?
Yeah. Or I actually had someone try to sell me a Super Mario 3 once, and we had a couple of times, and we had, anywhere between 15 and 20 in the back room.
Half for me, probably.
And they were like, this is the more rare one, though.
And you're like, okay, I can't sell it for more, though.
And that's what I explained. They're like, but they literally said, but less exist.
So?
And I feel like that's kind of the argument here. Just because less exists does not mean it's something that can easily be capitalized on. If no one cares, no one cares. And I tell people about it all the time. Like, if we have one of them, I'm like, look, this is cool. And they're like, yeah, I'll take the regular one. And people just don't give a shit. Or they're like, oh, I'll take either one. You have to manufacture the demand for that. And people have been trying to do that in the loose cart, complete, whatever, the normal collecting scene, I guess, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. They've been trying to do that for years, and it's not working in that segment of it. So now they've really got to try to build that up for, this sealed box collecting.
Sure.
And it's
they have to find these variants. They have to find these first prints wherever they can, because there's not enough of them.
Right. Collecting stops. It's not natural to suddenly force all of these things into collecting. And I have really I have no beef with these people who are doing this. And my reason why is NES is on the downturn. It's not gonna shoot up prices, I think, for anyone who wants to buy these games socially to play them. I don't think it's really gonna hurt them. What I do think it's going to do is create a very insular market that is going to crash just like comics did.
Well, and that's why, again, I hope you didn't skim past that part, or that's where I got, I guess, the most fiery, because it was a big crap on video game dealers and sellers.
It was gigantic. That's what I was referencing. Was that?
Because not knowing what sellers have to know to be successful, but then not knowing the buyer's market of what game players and collectors care about. And that to me was just so arrogant for someone coming into the hobby to say that you guys should know better in order to manufacture this scarcity that people care about. If you try to push to the people coming to your store, if you had both Super Mario Brothers next to each other, and there's still a good amount of the first print there, they're not like 1%.
No, I mean, in my stacks, I usually have one somewhere.
They're like, if you want to say 10 to 20% even. The first print was probably still millions or a million. So you have to sell products. So if you put both on the shelf, and the regular one was $15, if you try to sell that first print run for 60 or 70, no one would care that came in, probably. Most people's like, I just want the $15 one.
Yeah, no one would care. And that's the thing. Yeah. You can tell us that we should be looking for that stuff, but
that's not how you're making money.
But we've been in this market for years, decades, and it's just some of that stuff to the regular collectors never mattered. Now, this is a new thing. Obviously, they can manufacture if they want, but I look at it and I shake my head, and you're going to have to preach that to an entirely new audience, because no one who's already collecting video games is suddenly going to go, oh, you're right, I should give a shit about that. They're not going to.
And I think the other thing that I spoke about a lot, I forgot to bring this up. Comic books, by and large, were printed for like 1 month. Sometimes for a couple of months, or they were quarterly back in like the 30s, early 40s. Video games were produced for years. Super Mario Brothers, the black box one, was probably made for like 7 years. They probably made it up to like 92. That's why there's so many printings. So when you have a collector like me, to me, the material difference isn't that big that I got to go for the first print run of every single thing. Like my Clue Land's probably a Rev A. It's not the very first one. It's probably the one that came out, late 86 versus like early 86, or, you know what I mean? So it doesn't matter to most of us. To us, we don't have a cutoff. To us, it's not a reprint. It's just a continuation of the line, if that makes sense. That's how most of us look at these video games. And that's where I see the other difference being as well.
What else was I going to say? Oh, I mean, it's to the point, though, where it's hard for me to even talk about this or want to, because video games are the central item here, it's two completely different worlds. The rules that they've gone on are, the things that they're building up. It's like if someone took Chutes and Ladders, and instead of like, okay, we play it this way, and we're going to sort of adapt these rules for a new audience of players, they just take the same game and throw the rules out and rewrite them completely. It's not, it's at some point, I can't equate the two or even compare the two, because it's Just because it's using video games, it's not the same in any way, shape, or form. I don't think the sealed collecting, like I said, will ever affect the regular collecting. It's its own little bubble, and I would be surprised, and I could be wrong, but like on Nintendo Age even, there's very few people who like kind of bleed that line.
There's very few that are like really into both.
Yeah, there's very few that are really into both, and I don't know. It doesn't even seem like they're necessarily part of this new style of video game collecting, with the exception of a few.
Well, they're priced out, and it's just it's a 1% game hobby. I mean, that's what it is. It's not for me or you. Like I said, I'll be interested to see what happens at Portland. This will be the first time these collectors, you want to call them that, speculators, investors, are going to be at Portland this year, probably, because they were at too many games. But like I said, for Long Island, it was funny. The Wada guy was right next to us. He told me that he literally sold one game that weekend.
Well, I
so
mean,
that's just what the market is. There's not that many people.
It's not video game collecting. It's collecting as a hobby has found video games to collect, and that's fine. If you, I mean,
you're collecting wealth containers. I think that's what my favorite. They're wealth containers.
Sure.
The same thing that like high graded comics became. Like they're wealth containers. It's like buying art at that point.